It started with a vibration, not the kind that interrupts, the kind that lingers. His phone buzzed once, twice, then again. The screen flashed. Tom, work. We were halfway through a movie. Popcorn, blankets, the illusion of normal. I joked, Tom's persistent. Evan laughed, too easily, then locked the screen. My name's Laura, 32. I work in communications, which means I know how to tell when someone's typing and when they're deleting. Evan, 34, works at a marketing firm. Late calls, endless deadlines, the kind of job that lives in gray areas, creative enough to sound innocent, vague enough to hide in. The next night, another message. Then another. Always after 10, always from Tom. Over the next few weeks, the rhythm changed. His messages to me grew shorter, his tone clipped. Conversations that used to stretch into laughter now ended with, I'm tired. I stopped counting the messages on his phone and started counting the pauses in ours. I used to measure love by attention. Now I measure it by response time. When I asked who Tom was, he smiled and said, just work stuff. But no project runs that late, that often, or that quietly. And no lie ever stays silent, not when it has notifications. It was the boring kind of love that works until it doesn't. We shared a one-bedroom apartment in the city. Small balcony, espresso machine. Mornings that smelled like burnt toast and routine. Even our silence had a schedule. My job was crisis communication for a tech startup. Long hours, unpredictable clients, the kind of chaos that teaches you to listen for what isn't being said. I was trained to read tone, subtext, hesitation, the little fractures in language that tell you something's wrong. Evan's world was the opposite. He lived in creative chaos, pitch decks, client meetings, endless brainstorming sessions that stretched into the night. I used to admire that, how he could turn words into charm, ideas into currency. We'd been together 4 years. We didn't fight often, we just drifted. Two people who'd stopped trying to be understood and started settling for being convenient. We'd become efficient partners, good at tasks, bad at talking. He handled dinners, I handled mornings. He handled the jokes, I handled the truths. I told myself I trusted him, not blindly, strategically. I called it maturity. But looking back, it wasn't trust, it was autopilot. We loved each other like colleagues who'd forgotten what department they worked in. We met at a networking event, one of those after-work mixers full of name tags and lukewarm wine. I was giving a short presentation about crisis management. He was standing near the back, smiling like he already knew me. Afterward, he came up and said, "You sound like someone who always knows the right thing to say." I laughed. I wish that were true. He asked me out before I'd even packed up my laptop. It was direct, confident, the kind of gesture that used to feel like clarity. The first months were magnetic. Late-night walks through the city, shared playlists, the kind of conversations that stretch until sunrise because you still believe in infinite tomorrows. He liked that I was grounded, deliberate, calm. I liked that he wasn't, that he could make the world feel lighter just by looking at it differently. After a year, we moved in together. His apartment, my furniture. It felt like the start of something even time couldn't touch. He once said, "Love is about timing." Maybe that's why I noticed when his stopped syncing with mine. It wasn't a crash, it was a slow disconnection. A forgotten goodnight kiss, a muted laugh, the distance between two phones left face down. One night, I woke to find him texting in bed, the screen lighting up his face in blue. He said it was work stress. I believed him, kissed his shoulder and went back to sleep. The last night I did so without hesitation. We didn't lose each other suddenly. We just ran out of things to say before either of us noticed. His phone started lighting up later and later. Not constantly, just enough to feel deliberate. Always face down. Always close. At first, I told myself it was work. Marketing never really sleeps. There's always a deadline somewhere. But then he started taking the phone into the bathroom, keeping it under his pillow at night. When I joked, "You're worse than a teenager," he laughed too quickly. The kind of laugh meant to end a conversation, not join one. The next afternoon, I sent him a meme. Something harmless, something we'd normally trade in the middle of the day just to say, "I'm thinking of you." The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. Minutes later, a message. Sorry, in a meeting. But the chat showed read instantly. I didn't need proof. I just needed patterns. That night, he came home cheerful, almost performatively so. Dropped his keys, kissed my forehead, poured wine, talked about work, about new projects, about a new hire. Sophie, he said, she's sharp, reminds me of you. The words hung in the air, soft but dangerous. That's the thing about compliments. Sometimes they're placeholders for guilt. I smiled, nodded, let him talk. But something inside me shifted. The kind of quiet turn that doesn't make a sound but changes everything in its path. I stopped listening to what he said and started watching how he said it. I started paying attention the way you do when you already know what you'll find. It arrived on a Tuesday. An envelope wedged between bills and catalogs, no return address, my name handwritten across the front. Inside, one folded piece of paper. No greeting, no explanation, just a few sentences written in neat, slanted ink. I don't know you, but I think we're both dating the same man. He said his name was Evan. Check his messages from Tuesday night. That was it. No signature. For a moment, I stood by the kitchen counter, rereading the lines until the words blurred. My first instinct was denial. Not disbelief, just resistance to confirmation. He was in the shower, humming, water pounding against tile. The sound of someone safe inside their lie. By the time he fell asleep that night, I'd made my decision. I waited until his breathing evened out, that rhythmic calm that only the guilty seem to master. Then I reached for his phone, unlocked it with the code I wasn't supposed to know, opened Tom, work, and there she was. Sophie, messages disguised as professional updates, notes about projects, clients, campaign timelines, but between the bullet points, the tone changed. Your idea today was brilliant. You make the late nights worth it? Drinks next time? My treat. Flirting buried under work talk. Enough ambiguity to deny. Enough intimacy to confirm. The thread went back months. I scrolled further, found a photo, a blurred office mirror shot, half of his face reflected in the glass wall, the caption, "Wish you were here." And below it, a voice message. Her voice. Soft. Familiar in a way that made my stomach tighten. I didn't play it. Some things don't need sound to be heard. The fridge hummed behind me. The clock ticked like a metronome marking the death of something we'd once called ordinary. The letter's handwriting replayed in my mind. The slant of the words, the restraint in the phrasing. I pictured her, whoever she was, sitting somewhere under the same kind of light, doing her own quiet math at 2 a.m. 2 women. 1 lie. Cheating doesn't start with touch. It starts with attention. I didn't wake him. I didn't throw the phone or scream. I just sat there, watching the glow fade from the screen until it went black again. Then I refolded the letter, slid it back into its envelope, deleted the number from the bottom of the message, the one I'd been pretending not to notice. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger needs energy. All I had left was analysis. For a week, I said nothing. Silence became my new language. Calm, precise, weaponized. I woke up beside him, made coffee, kissed his cheek, pretended our life was still symmetrical. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did and thought pretending was easier too. At work, I drafted a crisis response email for a client. We value transparency. I stared at the line for a long time. The irony practically signed itself. That night, he left his laptop open on the counter. A notification slid across the screen. Dinner, we S. Not Tom, not even work. Just an initial, clean and untraceable. When he came home, I was waiting. How was dinner with Tom? I asked lightly, like I was asking about the weather. He froze. Barely half a second, but it was enough. Then he smiled. Productive. Good, I said. You should take him out more often. He didn't ask what I meant. That's how I knew he knew I knew. The next afternoon, another envelope arrived. Same handwriting, no return address. Inside, a photo. Evan and Sophie outside a cafe, their hands brushing like they were learning each other by memory. No note. Just proof. I didn't call him. I called the number written on the back of the photo. A woman answered, Older, composed, the kind of voice that used to lull a child to sleep. "You don't know me," she said. "I'm Sophie's mother." I didn't breathe. "She's been crying a lot lately," the woman continued. "I found those photos on her desk. I thought you should know the man she's crying over." Her voice trembled on the word man, and for the first time, I realized this wasn't just my heartbreak. It was someone else's inheritance, too. After the letter, I decided to act normal. Routine was easier than reaction. If silence was how he hid his secrets, it could be how I carried mine. At work, I drafted an email template for a client crisis. We value transparency. The irony nearly made me laugh. That night, Evan left his laptop open on the counter. A calendar notification blinked in the corner. "Dinner we ess." I didn't touch it. I just waited. When he came home, I asked, "How was dinner with Tom?" He froze. Just for a fraction of a second, a glitch in the performance. Then, "Productive." "Good," I said. "You should take him out more often." He didn't ask what I meant. That's how I knew I knew. The next day, another envelope arrived. No return address, just my name again. Inside, a photo. Evan and Sophie outside a cafe, hands brushing, mid-laugh. No note, just proof. I didn't call him. I called the number written faintly on the back of the photo. A woman answered, older, gentle voice, weary in a way that felt familiar. "You don't know me," she said softly. "I'm Sophie's mother." I said nothing. "She's been crying a lot lately," the woman continued. "I found those photos on her desk. I thought you should know the man she's crying over." Her tone wasn't angry, just tired, like she'd already mourned something I was still pretending to fix. I thanked her, because what else was there to say? After the call ended, I sat in the dark, phone still warm in my hand. That's the moment I realized affairs don't just break couples, they break the people orbiting them. And somehow, we all end up picking glass out of our hands for someone else's mess. Weeks passed. Evan left his job. "New opportunity," he said. He stopped mentioning Sophie, stopped mentioning work at all. We still shared the apartment, but not a life. Same kitchen, separate meals. His laughter became something that lived in another room. One evening, while rinsing dishes, he said, "We can fix this, you know?" I didn't look up. "I'm not sure who he is anymore." He nodded, eyes lowered. "I'm sorry." "You're sorry because she ended it," I said quietly. He didn't argue. That night, I moved into the spare room. We didn't have a breakup. We just stopped speaking the same language. The first letter, the one that started everything, sat in my desk drawer, unfolded, edges soft from being reread too often. A month later, another letter arrived. Same handwriting. "Thank you for not calling him. She's moved away. He's still sending messages." No signature. I read it once, then burned it in the sink. Watched the smoke curl into the vent like it was trying to escape, too. Even the strangers knew how to end things better than we did. Revenge didn't come in fire or fury. It came in silence. I changed the Wi-Fi password, canceled his streaming subscriptions, forwarded his calls to his new office. Small things, invisible cuts. When the florist called about his monthly order, the same one he used to send to Sophie's firm, I changed the delivery address, had them sent to his mother instead. The next week, he came home holding the bouquet, confused. "Did you do this?" I smiled. "You always said flowers mean closure." He didn't ask again. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about making sure they remember you every time they try to forget. He taught me how to lie quietly. I just learned to end quietly too. Because not every story needs forgiveness. Some just need a final edit.